All right, let's talk about one of our planet's most powerful climate solutions. And no, it's not some futuristic machine. It's actually an ancient system hidden in plain sight, right where the land meets the sea.
So to really get to the heart of this, let's kick things off with a pretty fundamental question.
You know, when we think about capturing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, it's probably one specific image.
Yep, we picture these huge green forests, right? Trees literally breathing in CO2 through photosynthesis. And look, they're absolutely a critical piece of the puzzle. But they aren't the whole story, not even close.
And that brings us to the real mystery we're going to unravel today. Is just capturing carbon the same thing as storing it for good, for the long haul? Well, the answer is way more interesting than you might think. To answer that, we actually need to zoom out a bit and look at this whole category of climate action called nature-based solutions.
The idea here isn't about inventing some new technology. It's about working with the powerful systems nature has already perfected, protecting and restoring them to soak up more carbon and prevent greenhouse gas emissions in the first place.
And a whole market has actually popped up to fund these projects. It's called the voluntary carbon market, and it lets companies and even individuals finance these activities that pull greenhouse gases out of the air, basically turning climate action into something tangible.
Okay, so if the forests we all know and love aren't the absolute best for long-term carbon storage, then where do we find nature's most effective systems? Well, the answer is hiding right there, along our coasts. This is what scientists call blue carbon. And specifically, it's the carbon that's captured by marine life in a way that we can actually manage and protect. That makes it a seriously powerful tool for us.
Today, we're going to zero in on 3 of these coastal powerhouses: mangroves, seagrasses, and tidal marshes. And the reason we're focusing on these 3 is huge. They're the ecosystems where we have solid, internationally accepted ways to actually measure their impact on the climate.
What's so amazing about these places is that they thrive where other plants just can't, in that salty tidal water. And believe it or not, that really tough environment, well, that's the key to their climate-fighting secret weapon. So what is this big secret? I mean, why are these coastal habitats so much better at locking carbon away for the long term than, say, a forest?
Okay, so take a look here. On the left, you've got your typical forest. On the right, a coastal marsh. Now, they both use photosynthesis to grab carbon out of the air, but what happens next is where things get completely different.
All right, get ready for this, because this number right here, it basically changes everything. In these blue carbon ecosystems, over 90% of the carbon isn't in the plants you see. It's locked away in the soil underneath them. So think of it like this. Photosynthesis in the plants, that's the engine that's pulling the carbon in. But the real magic, the long-term storage, that happens when all that organic stuff, the dead leaves and roots, gets buried in that mucky, waterlogged soil. See, there's almost no oxygen down there, so the little microbes that normally cause things to rot and release carbon, they just can't survive. That carbon gets trapped for hundreds, sometimes even thousands of years. This chart just lays it out perfectly. In forests, what we call green carbon, most of the carbon is in the wood, in the biomass. If that forest burns down or gets logged, poof, that carbon goes right back into the atmosphere. But in coastal blue carbon systems, that carbon is buried deep in the sediment. It's less like a shed and more like a high-security bank vault.
And the result is a system that's just stunningly efficient. I mean, on a per-area basis, these coastal zones punch way, way above their weight class, storing these incredible amounts of carbon in a pretty small footprint. But wait, there's more. As if locking away tons of carbon wasn't enough, these amazing ecosystems do a whole lot more for us.
I mean, they're natural barriers that protect our communities from storm surges. They act as critical nurseries for fish, which supports local economies and our food supply. They are hotspots for biodiversity, and they're natural water filters. It's an incredible package deal. Okay, but here's the flip side, and it's a big one. When we destroy these ecosystems, for coastal development or aquaculture, that super stable ancient carbon, it doesn't just stay put. That carbon vault gets broken wide open. We're talking centuries, sometimes millennia, of stored carbon getting released back into the atmosphere. It turns a powerful climate solution into a massive source of emissions. So, where does that leave us? What's the big takeaway here? How should we think about blue carbon's role in the grand scheme of things?
Look, it's an incredibly powerful tool for sure, but it's still just one tool in a much bigger toolbox. Protecting and restoring these ecosystems is absolutely crucial, but it's not a get-out-of-jail-free card. It can't be a substitute for cutting our emissions from energy, industry, and transport. We have to do it all.
But protecting these areas, that offers a fantastic two-for-one deal. First, we prevent that massive release of all that buried ancient carbon. And second, we preserve a living, breathing system that keeps pulling more carbon out of the air, day after day, year after year.
So this leaves us with a final thought to chew on. We now know the secret to truly long-term carbon storage isn't just about what's growing above the ground. It's about what's buried deep below it, right at the water's edge. The real question is, what are we going to do with that knowledge?